What I'm going to talk about today is about designing for China versus West tech and what you can learn from it. I want to introduce China with this person.
Sou cidadão do mundo, mas jogo pelo meu país. Sou atleta profissional, mas gosto da minha privacidade. E quero ficar conectado. Amo meu país, minha família e meus amigos. Por isso uso o WeChat.
All of you know him? Namar? Okay, so that was Namar's ad with WeChat, which is one of the apps that everybody uses in China. And okay, I just want to show you where I came from. Actually, I'm from Hong Kong. I flew 40 hours to come here. So at first, when I got invited, I thought, hey, I've lived in New York before, and Hong Kong, New York, and Florida similar. But it was only 11 hours to New York. It's 40 hours here. But I find a lot of similarities between Hong Kong and Florida. In Hong Kong, we call China the mainland China. And here, you call Brazil mainland, right? And Hong Kong is also an island, and we're attached to mainland. And it's also very humid and wet at some times during the summer. Okay, so why am I here to talk about China? We're actually one of the BRIC countries. Do you know BRIC? B-R-I-C? Yeah, actually Brazil is the last BRIC country that I haven't seen, so I'm so glad I'm here and to meet you all, right? So let me first start with some business, okay? Because I'm on the business island of this conference, and to tell you, why is China even relevant to you? Because it's so far away, right? Okay, I guess most of you, I learned during this week that a lot of you are on WhatsApp. Yes? Raise your hands, okay? And I'm sure you use Google, Facebook, yeah? YouTube, right? All of this. But are you aware that on the other side of the world, in China, there exists another completely different ecosystem? How many of you know Baidu? Okay. Alibaba? AliExpress people. Yeah. Tencent. Less. Okay. WeChat? Okay. WeChat has 900 million people using it right now. You know how many people are 900 million? It's 3 times the size of the United States, okay? And 100 million are outside of China, okay? I know Brazil has 200 million people, right? Okay, so that's the size. And even services like Douban has 100 million people using it, okay? So why China? Have you seen this map before? There's more people inside this circle than outside of it. Did you know that? Okay, there's 7 billion people worldwide. There's 3.7 billion people inside the circle. Isn't that crazy? And Hong Kong is right in the middle. And China is this black chicken that nobody understands, okay? Because it's a different language, it's a different culture, and most people don't speak Chinese, right? Okay, so that's put some context as to why that part of the world could be important. So out of this circle, there are 19 countries, all these, and the first 1.3 billion is China. India is similar, and all the others like Indonesia is actually quite big as well, okay? And if you look at the world population, China is 18.5, India is 17.9%, so Brazil is here, and USA is there, right? So you see the proportion. Of course, bigger doesn't mean, better, right? But if you look at the upcoming estimates from PricewaterhouseCoopers, now it's 2017, okay? So E7 are the emerging economies, which Brazil is one of them. Right? And then G7 is the developed market. So in 2050, like look at where China and Brazil is. China's still number 1, and Brazil is going to be bumped up from 7 to 5, and then India's second. So emerging market is getting more and more important because these markets have a lot of young people like you guys, who are growing in middle class, spending more. And did you know that Brazil is China's largest trading partner? Did you know that? Raise your hand. Okay. It's actually gotten to be number 1 right now. It's 35.1 billion. So China is like 19% of Brazil's like trading. I know you export a lot of iron ore and a lot of natural resources, right? And why is this happening? So if you look at, how many of you have been to China? Okay, wow, maybe 1%? All right. Actually, in the last 30 years, China has risen 80% of people from poverty to now it's 2017, so to 10% in 2010, out of all the BRIC countries. And if you don't know China's history, actually, it wasn't up until the 1980s that China opened up to the world. Right before that, it was, Mao and the Cultural Revolution and the Great Leap Forward, right? But once it opened up, actually, several things happened at the same time. China's, at the same time, agrarian economy, manufacturing economy, service, knowledge economy at the same time. So it's actually really interesting in China. You can basically, if I draw a parallel with the US, you have the Andrew Carnegies, which is like the steel, king of steel, the Steve Jobs and the Mark Zuckerberg at the same time, okay? And that's what's happening in China right now. So there are still coal and steel, kings. I mean, when I say king, I mean, they are very, very rich tycoons, in that industry. And at the same time, there are the Alibabas and Tencent companies, which are internet companies. And we actually did this for Herman Miller, and this is public information. We mapped, these are personas that we looked into. And you have to really look back to the history, because in the US is baby boomers, generation X, Y, Z. But in China, you need to look at the history of where people come from, because there is a generation of people who went through the Cultural Revolution, and that's very different from the young people nowadays, right? So we mapped it out according to people who lived abroad, who never lived abroad, and how their psychology is different. Okay, did you guys know this? Actually, this was just news last week. Tim Cook and Mark Zuckerberg went to meet the president of China, Xi Jinping. And so how many of you use Facebook? Okay, so Mark Zuckerberg has learned Chinese. Have you heard him talk Chinese? He talked for half an hour nonstop in Chinese in Tsinghua University in Beijing.
我很高兴来北京我爱这个城市我的中文很糟糕，但是我的天学用中文我可能需要练习。
大家对你能说中文非常吃惊。
Okay. Well, what I want to say is actually he's really loved by the people because, he made an effort to learn Chinese. And a lot of foreigners that I know in China, if they speak Chinese, they are on national TV right away. Because Chinese is not an easy language, right? And guess where I saw this? This is Alipay. Alipay is from Alibaba. It's a mobile payment platform. Any guess? I was just in Europe last month. This was in Finland, in a hotel. Okay, and also on the streets, a lot of stores have Alipay. So it's interesting. All these Chinese companies are also going international. Maybe at the moment it's trying to serve Chinese tourists going abroad, but it'll be interesting to see what effect it has globally. Okay, so back to the chicken. Okay, so I just want to introduce a little bit about my background, about why I know this. Because I'm actually from Hong Kong. Hong Kong was a British colony for 100 years. So that's why I grew up bilingual and bicultural. So I spoke English when I was, 2 maybe. And this is usually the slide that I want to share, that I myself feel this way. I'm like divided in half. It's sort of like it's as if I'm culturally mixed, where, one of my parents are from the US and one of my other parents are in China. Culturally. Actually, both of my parents are Chinese, but because I've spent a lot of time in the US, and here's my one slide background. I grew up in Hong Kong, and I went to the US in the 90s during the dot-com boom and bust. So the whole 90s I was in the US, and I worked with companies like Razorfish, Philips Network Home. I did that, way back in 1998. And then I came back to Asia for 15 years. So I was culturally shocked twice, coming back. And I have one foot in education, because when I went back to Hong Kong in 2002, nobody knew what I was talking about when I said user experience and, design innovation. So I decided to go to the dark side and went to do my EMBA in Beijing. These are all my mainland Chinese classmates, and the whole thesis was in Mandarin. Okay, but then what I noticed is, in business school, they never taught innovation. They never taught creativity. But now I know, what business school is about. I can talk about design and innovation much better. This is actually a photo of all of us from this Chung Kong Business School going to UCLA. This is actually in the States, in Los Angeles. Okay, this is my company. What we do is we mainly help foreign companies strategize for the China market. And for the past 15 years, we have been to many, many homes. We do research and strategy. We help all these Western companies. Not only Western, we have different types from B2B, B2C, mobile web. So how many of you know beyond Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, Shenzhen? Guangzhou? Yeah? Dalian, Shenyang, Wuhan? No, okay. It's sort of like me only knowing Sao Paulo and Rio. Right? So China is huge. And we've been to first, second, third tier cities. And actually, Jinhua is a place that produces a lot of ham, and I was told that a lot of French prosciutto is also from that place. So these are a lot of the homes that we've been to. It used to be one-child policy in China. That's why I see three-person family. Last year, they just started the second child, okay? And actually, our field is just starting in Asia, I would say. I've been back for 15 years, and last month was the second design thinking conference in Hong Kong. And all people all over Asia came, including actually Richard Kelly, who used to be the Shanghai managing director, is now in Hong Kong with Li and Feng. And we have a group of people who are either affiliated with IDEO or Stanford D School. And we are trying now to convince government people. We did workshops, like we made government people wear pink, which is not an easy thing to do. I've also talked about China at Uber in San Francisco 2 years ago, about how UX design teams work and research works. So back to China, how many of you know what BAT means? BAT? No? Wow, okay. Well, it stands for Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. Okay, so it's these three companies. And, well, you already know Alibaba because you use AliExpress, right? Baidu, it's often equated with Google because their search looks just like Google with like one search box. But they're in many, many businesses, also like travel and food delivery and everything. And Tencent is most well known because they produced WeChat. Yeah. So did you know these few facts? Did you know, like, in America, well, I'll use a lot of parallel from the US because that's what I know best. So in the States, there are like 30 of these apps. You guys use these apps too? Yeah? In China, it's like one app. It's called the Super app. All right? And it's really interesting because I think the whole mental model of how people design are very different. And people in China are okay with that. I think in the United States, people won't be okay with that, right? They will say it's monopoly and they need to break up, right? And everybody's on this one interface. How many of you have WeChat? Okay, some of you. If you don't have it, download it now. I'll show you something really cool afterwards. Okay. Did you know WeChat is already global? How many of you know that? No? Okay, some. So I see, they're sort of here as well in Brazil. Okay. And we actually visited. I organized a user experience tour back in 2015, and we went to 18 companies in 8 days in 5 cities in China. And now we're also offering to our partners and foreign companies who are interested in China, because the reason why I want to talk about these things is because I feel the media hasn't really showed a lot about China, or maybe it's political or, for whatever reason, but I think people outside of China has no idea what's going on. Okay, here's another fact. Did you know in 2010, Alibaba's e-commerce has already surpassed both Amazon and eBay combined? You know that? This is kind of crazy, right? Like, how could a company be so big and nobody knows about it? And Alibaba, there's an Alibaba for all these businesses. Like PayPal, there's Alipay. Amazon Web Services, there's Aliyun. Google Play, there's Aliyun App Store. So every single Western company, there's an equivalent in China. This is Alibaba Group in Hangzhou. It's sort of like the Seattle, where it's like the northeast of China. And this is Alibaba's office. It's designed by an Australian company. And here's a clip about one of their new services, Kai Cainiao, which is doing logistics. And they're already trying to use AR and VR.
托给菜鸟，今后菜鸟也将不断提升自己，变得越来越智能和高效。
通过增强现实技术，仓内工作人员可以快速核对入库商品的数量与质量，并快速分类，同时快速录入商品的重量与体积。可视化的仓内导航与库区识别系统也会推动商品精准快速上架。
And a lot of the designers in China, even the design directors, are only 30 years old. Isn't that crazy? I'm like grandma in China, because the field never existed until 2008. So it's just been 10 years. And there's a huge demand. Alibaba has 1,000 UX designers now. And all the BATs has like 300 or more. So, interestingly, today is November 11th. It's a Singles Day. Do you know 11/11? Okay, basically Alibaba created today as whoever is single and do not have a date goes online shopping like crazy. Okay, so there is a lot of discount today. And I think it's already broke last year's record as of now. I think in 12 hours, they already sold $18 billion US. So this is the Portuguese version, AliExpress, yeah. So here, if you look at the numbers, 2016, it was $20 billion US, and it grew 40% from last year, and that's the orange chart, right? And the US Cyber Monday and Black Friday is the pink and the purple one. So the number is just massive. And also, did you know this company called Xiaomi? Anyone know Xiaomi? Whoa, AliExpress. Right. So Xiaomi has already become one of the world's fastest growing smartphone brands in 2017. And interestingly, they're selling more outside of China than inside China. You know Jackie Chan? Kung Fu? Okay. He's on Segway. And apparently, Segway is a Chinese company now. It got bought by Xiaomi. And here's a video of, actually in China, you can actually use this on the streets. I bought one, back home, and it's like a little robot. You have this remote, and it can follow you. It can follow you around, like Wall-E. As I was bringing back this robot from Shenzhen to Hong Kong, everybody who was next to me was like talking to me. So it's like having a dog, Okay. So why is this happening? Like, why are these companies so big that nobody knows about? So my analogy is China's like a chicken, right? And the US is like a piece of steak. And apparently we like to eat those meats too. Actually, if you look at the population, China's population size is around 4.3 times the U.S. Yeah, so we just have so much more mouths to feed. Okay, and what I'm super interested to share with you is about culture. Okay, and 2 days ago we had a workshop. And I showed people this book called The Geography of Thought. Any of you read about that? Okay, Brenda. It's really interesting. It talks about how from different continents grows different cultures, okay? And historically, the countries who are island cultures tend to want to attack the bigger ones. And the culture of debate came from Italy. Like Venice, when there was trading, people have to debate and negotiate and argue, right? So a lot of Western culture came from that. China came from a culture of farming, right? We eat rice, right? That's why a lot of Chinese people want boys, because in a farming culture, you need male kids to have physiology to help with farming. And I want to do a little experiment with you, which I did the other day too. So culture and connection. If you have chicken, grass, and cow, what would you put together with the cow? Who would select grass in this room? Okay. And who would select chicken? Interesting. You know what the experiment came out to be? Usually in a lot of Western cultures, they would select cow and chicken because it's categorical. It's animals and plants, okay? For cultures that are relational, they would imagine the cow eating the grass. So all of you are relational. All of you are Asian. It's a really fun exercise to test it with your friends and see what they say. And almost 13 years ago, after I started my company for 15 years, with our first project, we worked with HP, doing ethnography in homes. I ran into a lot of issues. And after that, I wrote an article. And it landed on this book called Understanding Users in the Internationalization chapter. And what I found out is, oh my God, like all these methodologies I learned in the West, because I spent there for 12 years, right? When I come back to my own culture, like, why is this happening? So I kept asking myself questions. And I came up with this model of how we are actually different. So if you look at Chinese culture, our philosophers are Confucius and Lao Tzu, and we're collectivist society. We're hierarchical and authoritarian, like all Chinese kids would have to listen to their parents, okay? We have a culture of filial piety, respecting elderly, and seniority. We tend to not be so direct in communication. That's why sometimes it's very frustrating for Americans to work with Chinese people. we never, yes never means yes, no never means no. Like, we act like women, right? Yeah. We're much more practical and family-oriented, and we value harmony and balance. When I contrast it to my experience in the U.S., it's a very individualistic society. Like, I was shocked when my friends told me that, they wouldn't let their parents into the room. And in Chinese culture, your parents are in your life forever. How many of you live with your parents, until you're 40? Maybe you're not that old, but in certain cultures, we do that. Like Italians, right? It's okay, right? And we tend to call our parents all the time, at least once a week, right? How many times do you call your parents? Do you call every week? Okay, every day? Some, every month? Ah, okay, I see. And logic and scientific inquiry of truth. And this totally affects how we do research, okay? Because when I work with my American colleagues, sometimes we try to ask the same question multiple times to see if the person is telling the truth, and this annoys the hell out of Chinese people. They think you're like interrogating them, right? And Americans are much more direct when they say things, which sometimes is very good and very efficient. And much more philosophical when I compare to how Chinese people communicate. I think in Chinese families or friends, we will less debate about things that are not very practical, like going to eat and karaoke. It's very rare for people to debate very philosophical things. And I think U.S. is more maybe self-oriented than family, and also discovering the truth instead of maintaining harmony and balance. Do you want to know what Brazilians are? Or what South American is? So it's not from me, it's from you guys. I did the workshop 2 days ago, and you guys gave this answer, okay? So what I did is I asked the workshop people to interview each other. Most of them are from Argentina or Brazil. Interview each other, and then find out what are the issues when they're doing user research over here. Okay, afterwards, they identify, oh, wow, we also have problems asking users to come out to places where they don't feel safe, right? And then some groups said, people are also find there are fake users. Because in a collectivist society, people only people only trust their friends and family. It's very hard to recruit cold. It's hard to recruit from a database, right? People only trust their networks. Right? So if you recruit cold, you're most likely going to get people who are fake. And then they'll pretend to be users. And we get that in China a lot. So we actually don't believe in, number one, we don't believe in focus groups. We don't believe in recruiting cold. And we do things our way to get to the right solution. Okay? So here is the South American model of thought. Of course, there are discrepancies, not to label anyone. But interestingly, I think the culture here has parts of Chinese and parts of U.S. Do you agree with this? Yeah, people are more collectivist, And interestingly, in terms of hierarchy and quality, you guys told me that it's socially equal, but when it comes to power, it's hierarchical. So people can argue the hell out of something, and then the boss would say, stop, listen to me. And you guys would go ahead. Is that right? All right. Democratic, more than Chinese. Very relationship-oriented. We already experienced this in this conference. Like, people are very hospitable. I'm amazed. It's as if they have a GPS over us and know where we show up when. And try to do as much as possible to help us. Indirect communication, more philosophical, also family and balance. So the yellow ones are more the Chinese aspect. And interestingly, you guys told me that you don't really have a philosopher. Because Brazilian culture only came about, 100 years, right? But then people wrote this, Jesus as the, guiding light, maybe? Yes, because there's a Catholic culture, right, here. So I think understanding deeply what your culture represents can allow you to come up with lots of design methods that are suitable for your culture. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the top 10 differences. I can only say China and US, but you can extend this to how it might serve you as well. Okay, number one is pricing difference. You see that? Whoops. Pricing difference, okay? So I'm sure as emerging market, you would always feel like, why is the iPhone so freaking expensive? When it comes over, the price never adjusts, okay? And when we help our US clients, we always run into this. For example, we help Airbnb, right? Airbnb really thrived because, in the US, hotels are really expensive, right? But Airbnb provides another option on top of experiencing local culture. The pricing is less than hotels. But if that model comes to China, guess what? In China, we have something called Motel 268, which is like a hotel chain. And guess how much it is? It's only like 40 US, right? So this is Airbnb, and this is like in Hong Kong dollars, Motel 268. So the problem is, once you come over to another emerging market, the pricing difference is like, way high, right? And this happens in every single category that we worked with. Medical devices, coming from Europe to China, 10 times the price, right? Even vacuum cleaners, coming to China, 10 times the price. So the problem is, if for the similar product, why would a Chinese person buy something that is so much more expensive if the features are kind of similar, but not 10 times difference, right? That's where companies like Xiaomi works really well, because it's at a price point that works for the emerging markets. Number two, speed, okay? We help a lot of US and European companies do user research in China, and usually maybe 4 to 6 weeks, time frame. But you know what? In China, the entire product development is 46 weeks. No time to do research. In fact, research is in the market, right? So speed is just big difference, right? And in Asia, we have a problem convincing companies about research, because the market goes so fast. In China, if you wait another 3 months, you're going to be gone, okay? Competition's so fierce that there's no time. And that's just because the way the market is. It's a fast-growing market. So 4 to 6 times the difference in speed. And to illustrate that, Xiaomi started only in 2010, and it's already a 20 billion US company, okay? And it created products like, of course, sometimes it's been said to be a copycat of Apple. But if you look at the products nowadays, Apple don't have these products. It has the Blue Watch is for tracking kids, because in China there's an issue of kid abduction. Yeah, so the parents can track the kids with the Xiaomi phone, with the watch, and also there is air purifier because China is pollution, right? They also came up with face mask for the pollution. Also, the blood pressure monitor, there are 2 buttons in Chinese. It says mom and dad. It's a great gift for, your parents. And there's also this bunny rabbit in blue over there, okay? The bunny rabbit works with WeChat. So if your 2-year-old or 3-year-old can't use WeChat, like cell phone, it can press a button on the bunny rabbit, and then the voice message is going to go to the parents' like mobile phone, and you can communicate with your kid, right? Okay, number 3, culture. How does culture affect the way we design? So in the US, it's much more of an individualistic culture. In China, it's much more collectivist. I think also here is much more collectivist, right? Chinese people move in crowds, right? You go to a Chinese restaurant, it's like 12 seats round table, right? Chinese people go to karaoke and like a bunch of people. Do you guys do that here? Some? Yeah? So that affects the way we design. So if you look at this chart about individualism versus collectivism, I mean, a lot of the methods that we use now have been invented, in more individualistic culture, I believe. But if you're looking at emerging market, hey, Brazil, Mexico, Turkey, China, India, it's all collectivist culture. So how does that change the way we design? And you see this by just looking at the Beijing Olympics mascot. I don't think in any other Olympics has mascot with 5 mascots instead of 1, okay? And why is there 5? 5 is this collectivist. And China has 5 elements, fire, water, wood, metal, and, the ground. And, and also China has 55 minority groups, okay? There are 56 groups in culture, but Han is like the dominant, but there are actually 55 others. So I think they felt that they needed different mascots to represent the diversity. And also in US, there's, so the reason why I said I was double cultural shocked is when I went to the US, it was all about you need to be different. You need to stand out. You need to have your own opinion, right? You need to be outspoken. But as Chinese culture growing up, we're not taught that way. We're asked to be obedient. We're asked to stay quiet, right? So it's like the opposite, right? And then coming back to Asia, it's like I need to kind of like tone myself down, otherwise I'll offend everybody else. And in Chinese culture, it talks about being harmonious but different. And harmonious meaning conformity, right? You need to be similar to people around you, right? And I often use this analogy of how, and I think the way culture affects us is like, for example, if you look at U.S. films, there's a lot of black and white, Superman and the bad guy, right? You have Batman and the Joker, right? It's like God and devil and black and white. But you know what? Chinese people think this way. Yin and yang, and yin there's yang, okay? In good there's bad, and bad there's good. If you look at Asian movies, you can never really tell, so who's the good guy or the bad guy, because it's like all kind of mixed up, right? And if you look at how we communicate, it's also kind of interesting. Well, Brazilian culture is emotionally expressive and avoids confrontation. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Chinese is totally avoids confrontation and emotionally unexpressive. So it's like way down there, I think. Like similar to Japan, maybe better than Japan, but it's in that quadrant. And then there are some cultures like Northern European and US that are more confrontational and less emotionally expressive. Some are more, some are less. The Southern European are more emotionally expressive, right? So different cultures are kind of different. And you see it in the way you communicate with people, right? And how does this translate to design? If you look at Chinese designs, it's almost like, why is everything similar? Because people want to be similar, okay? And if you look at Chinese people wearing brands, it's like, why is everybody wearing LV? And why is everybody wearing like MGM like bags? Everybody's wearing the same brand, but slightly different, okay? Like they want to conform. Okay, another one is, so you use WhatsApp, right? Okay, I know in the US, most people have WhatsApp, but it's mainly like 1-to-1 or less than 10 people group, right? You guys have a few hundred, I heard, right? Yeah, so you use WhatsApp differently. Even WhatsApp did not expect their groups to be so big. They have to up it, right? In China, most people use WeChat, and it's like 500 people per group. 500. So when we recruit people, we use WeChat. Because in my WeChat, I have 3,000 some people in different groups. 500 to 1, right? So you can see it. This is my WhatsApp, like few people. And then here's my WeChat, just one group. It's like 497 people. And my Western friends ask, how do you communicate? We're like, you just say one thing. And it's about being part of the group. It's not exactly about being very like discussing anything important. It's more like Chinese New Year, and then we send like red packets or money to each other on mobile payment. Okay, number 4. Hierarchical needs. Actually, one speaker talked about hierarchy of needs. Do you remember? Are you familiar with Maslow hierarchy? Okay, there's a professor from MIT who talks about, he thinks Chinese hierarchy of needs are different. In fact, love and belong is at the base. Love and belonging is even more important than food and shelter. That explains why Chinese people are so collectivist and guanxi and relationship and face-driven, because the needs are, different. The only reason why that is bigger is I just wanted to show you where it's shifted. And you can see this in apps. WeChat has a function called WeRun, and you can see like how many steps you've walked in comparison with all your friends. Every single day, there's a chart, and if you walk the most, you top the charts, and it will show your screen. So I apparently didn't move that day. It's 0. Number 5, trust. The concept of trust, I also think it's quite different. In the US, people trust the law, okay? That's why lawyers make a lot of money in the US. In China, well, there's law, but actually people trust people more, relationships. How does it affect design? When we work with US companies, one thing that we usually encounter is like they want us to have users sign like NDAs, like 5 pages, right? And we're like, no, people are not going to let you in their house if you need them to sign NDAs. So what we came up with is we came up with a one-liner NDA, our version. And the reason is, and we also don't tell the user they need to sign NDA before the research. It's almost like after we establish the trust, do the interview, at the very end, we take out this one sheet of paper and said, by the way, our client wants to protect your information, and at the same time, can you also protect theirs? And usually it's okay, right? It needs to be mutual, right? And we say, hey, the client wants to protect yours first, and then that's in their favor. That's why they will say yes. So we do it in a different order, but at least we have some black and white, and it's not going to freak out the user. Because you also need to understand China went through the Cultural Revolution not so long ago. And during the Cultural Revolution, even family members are asked to turn in their parents or their siblings to the government, like to the communist unit, right? So the level of trust is very low, right? And that's why if we go into people's homes, we need to be very careful, especially with the older generation. They're very skeptical of a lot of things. And I also learned from your designers here that also in this part of the world, sometimes it's hard to get people to meet in places where they don't think it's safe. Is that right? Yeah, okay. So consider your own culture as well. Number 6, relationships. In the US, I feel there is a sense of community. Like, IXDA is a community, right? Do you know in Chinese culture, we don't associate community that way. We actually have the Shanghai Association and the Ningbo Association and the Guangzhou Association. It's by where we are from, okay? It's as if you have a Floripa Association and a like Sao Paulo Association, okay? We have a concept of what's called the in-group and the out-group, and it's all relationship-based. So friends and family are in-group, and if you get like a referral from a friends and family, that is very easy, right? But if not, then people will consider you as a stranger. So I feel there's like a we versus an us. And that's because we are a relationship-oriented culture. And we're not about the truth, like scientific inquiry of the truth. And how does this pan out in research and design is we recruit people via WeChat. We even build WeChat pages so that we can send it to friends and family to get data. But we have to be very careful because once we burn that relationship, it's like forever. And we also send red packets. Do you know what's a red packet? Okay, so during Chinese New Year, traditionally, people have like red envelopes and they give money to each other. Usually it's like the older people give money to the younger ones. Now it has evolved into a red packet, and WeChat has really successfully done this. A few years ago, when WeChat started this, it made people join WeChat, and because they need to get the money, they need to open up a WeChat wallet. So it was really successful marketing. And if you download the WeChat, I'll send you a red packet after this. Number 7, social hierarchy. In the US, it's very equal, egalitarian. China is very hierarchical. Okay, Chinese traditionally have this Confucius 5 cardinal relationships. There's a social order. And this came about because prior to Confucius, there was 100 years of turmoil, of fighting, of internal war. And that's why Confucius came up with this social order about how young people should respect their elderly, should respect seniority, like son cannot kill their father, and wife and husband, the relationship, like how people should behave, versus being very equal. That's why in Chinese culture, we have a U-shaped communication. Boss tells manager, manager tells designer, designer tells manager, it's like U-shaped, right? In the US, we often communicate like directly. And we CC everyone, and it's flat, and it's okay. And if you look at leadership cultures, China, India, Brazil, it's hierarchical and top-down, right? And I'm sure you probably are facing some of the very same issues that I face in China. It's like, how do you convince people at the top, right? How do you access them? And you see this in one of our projects. We did a post office project in Hong Kong. Do you see 2 tables? Okay, we're trying to do a workshop, but one table is full of people with suits, and the other table is not. So those are the boss and the managers, and this table is the operational people. Okay, we have to separate them because if we mix them together, actually one of the post office employees were like, am I gonna get fired? If he says something wrong and he's next to the boss, he's like very afraid. So we need to adapt. And one way we overcame that is I had everybody write on Post-it notes their ideas anonymously. Nobody knew who wrote the idea, but all the ideas came out. Okay, number 8, language. Did you know that Chinese language, I think even, Portuguese and Spanish is more phonetic, right? It's Latin language, right? Chinese language is visual. I think it might be pretty easy for designers because it's pictures. It's a lot of pictures. So let me give you an example. So this is a translation, but Yi-Tian is one day, okay? So you see Chinese language is like completely on a different plane. So in China, This word is man. Okay, and I'll show you why it's called man. It's the paddy field, and with energy, paddy field and energy. I told you China is from farming culture, right? And that is a man. And a woman, okay, a woman is a woman like sitting, maybe like meditating like this. Okay? And now you know how to read the toilet signs in China. Okay, man and woman. And interestingly, if you put two men and one woman together, it means jealousy. Two men and a woman. That's how all the soap operas work, right? Jealousy. So if you understand the logic of some of the pictures, it's actually really interesting. And how does that affect design? With the same content, in Chinese it's much shorter. Because it's a language thousands of years, we have many proverbs. There's only 4 characters, and it already explains the whole story. So if you look at the design, like this is Google Play Store versus QQ Browser, we can fit much more information because the characters is just so dense. Okay, number 9, aesthetics. In the US, I find a lot of like the electronic products are like black, blue, gray, right? Motorola, right? And in China, it's like gold, rose, and natural colors. And I think it means different things, right? I think in China, like gold is like luxury, rose, pink is cute, and like wood is like natural colors. In the US is more practical and non-frills. Have you seen the pink rose gold phone? Do they sell here? Yeah, they do? Okay. Do people like it? Okay. No. Actually, Tim Cook says the iPhone 6 in the color rose gold is focused on the China market and sells super well. So I think the gold and the rose gold is for the Chinese market. And if you look at Evernote, Evernote actually works pretty well in China. So this is the global site. If you look at the Chinese site, do you see the URL? It's yinxiang.com. It's actually translated to Chinese because Chinese people cannot read English. They cannot go evernote.com or CN. And you can see the style is very different, right? It's very mellow and zen-like. This is eBay from the global site, and this is Tmall. Look at the colors, right? I mean, I don't know if you think it's tacky, but it works for Chinese people, right? Pink and orange and all these colors. Number 10, face. Chinese talk a lot about face, and it's interesting. All the very popular apps. It's about upgrading what people look like. Have you heard of this app called Meitu? So basically, all the photos that you post online, you first, mess with your face and make it look prettier before you post it on social media. Do you guys do that? Some, maybe, okay. That's what they look like. And interestingly, this app Meitu came up with a hardware mobile phone just for that purpose. I think you would never imagine Instagram to come with a hardware product, right? It's just interesting how Chinese companies can move from one category to another, and they have no problem with that. And for this, I actually came up with a Experience Digital China tour. We now have a 5-day version for companies. This is for the public, and I want to show you a video of how things have changed in China. And
we've just wrapped up a full day here in Shenzhen, and one of the things that I take away from this trip is just the sheer power that a cashless society has here in Shenzhen, with WeChat really harnessing millions and millions of people's spending power in one app. And we learned today how you could pay for meals with an app, how you could split bills, how you could borrow an iPhone charger. We even rented bikes, and at the end of it all, I invested that money and came out ahead. And so I'd like to thank Elaine and the group, because today I walked away a happy man. Thank you.
So here's one of the participants. He's the VP of AIG in Hong Kong. And, he lives in Hong Kong. He's never been to China. So he joined the tour to experience what it's like. Okay, and now we have a 5-day immersion program for, companies who want to take their stakeholders to China. Because the reason why we're doing this, because for 15 years we've been helping foreign companies in China. And sometimes we find it's not just the usability. Is the whole product definition is wrong, okay? And unless decision makers come over to see, because sometimes you can't imagine what things are like in another country if you don't go there. I mean, I won't be able to imagine what Brazil like if I don't come here, right? So unless you go there by yourself and experience yourself and, ignore all the noise from media and judge for yourself when you're in China, then I think you'll make much better decisions. Okay, so lastly, in conclusion, I just wanted to show you, this guy? Bruce Lee? I'm all for fighting in your own style, okay? Bruce Lee, you know how Bruce Lee fights? Do you know why he has high kicks? Because he's only 5'7", and he needs to fight somebody who's like 7 foot, right? So if he copied Western boxing, he would never have been famous, or he would never have won, okay? So I encourage you all, embrace your own culture, come up with methodology that's suitable for you. In all different cultures, right? And, and if you have heard Bruce Lee talk, this is in the 1970s, before he died, you can see how much Chinese culture he has embraced and spread it to the world.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
So what he's saying is actually from Lao Tzu. It's a Chinese philosopher about being water when you fight, be fluid and not like, steel. And I know in Brazil you have jiu-jitsu. You have your own way of, fighting. And, the American boxing and, Bruce Lee's way of fighting. And I believe we need to come up with methodologies for emerging markets, just like the way we have martial arts. And lastly, Bruce Lee says, always be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself, do not go out and look for successful personalities and duplicate it. And I think emerging markets should come up with something that's authentic to yourself. This is the word for martial arts, and you know what it means? It actually means stop weapon. So the highest form of martial arts is not to fight and win the war. Okay? So how does your culture affect how you research and design? Is a question that I want you to think about. And lastly, I just wanted to demo something really interesting, and I need to go off the stage to do this. I want a really handsome guy. Can I have a volunteer? Can you come over here? If you have your WeChat downloaded, open it up. Okay, and we'll show something on screen. Are you the handsome guy? Okay. Yeah, no. Just, okay, wait for, okay. Yes, this one. Okay. So open WeChat. I'm not going to show you the WeChat one first, but I'll show you this thing called, okay, you see us now here, right? Hello, can you see us? Yes. Okay. All right. So there's this really funny app called Me2. P2. Okay. Can you take off your glasses? Yeah. More handsome that way. Okay. This is one of the most popular apps in China. Oops, wait. I think I need more light. I need more light. Oh, wait, this side, this side. Okay. Do you see yourself? All right. It's called P2, so you can have a lot of fun with your friends and family. It's actually a really great ego-boosting app. You can be any character that you want. And lastly, I just want to show you WeChat. Why don't you open WeChat? Okay. And one really amazing thing is I can add all of you into WeChat in under 1 second. Okay. So if I open this up, what happened? Do you have the screen up? Okay. If you go to the top right-hand corner, there's a plus sign. And then you go to New Chat. And you go to Join Private Group. And I'll give you a number now. And the number is 0852. Just punch in the number, and all of you are going to come into this group in under 1 second. And once you're in the group, I'll send you a red packet. Okay? Thank you very much.
Em termos de usabilidade e estética, você não acha que, na verdade, com a maturidade tecnológica, com o passar do tempo, as interfaces e o design de produto em geral, na China, no mercado chinês, vai passar a ter uma vibe mais discreta e mais ocidental, por assim dizer? Porque eu lembro que há 10 anos as interfaces e os aplicativos e tudo que a gente usava era muito carregado, era tudo muito esquemórfico. E com o passar do tempo as coisas acabaram mudando. Você não acha que isso, na verdade, é uma fase no mercado chinês?
Yeah, there are many theories about... Okay, there are many theories about why Chinese sites look very crowded and, very loud. Okay, I'm hearing myself. One explanation people had was because, first of all, China has a lot of people, right? So people are used to that context of being with a lot of people. So crowdedness is one of them. And also, in the old days, the Chinese internet was very slow. That's why they needed to fit a lot of things on one web page, instead of having to refresh all the time. So that was one theory that people had about why Chinese sites look the way they do. And are you saying that if it's going to change to like more clean design? I actually don't think so, because that's my theory or argumentation is different cultures have different backgrounds and different aesthetics. Actually, if you study traditional Chinese aesthetics, everything is a balance and harmony. Balance and harmony. When I studied design in the US, I was taught how to create visual tension, right? How to put a glass near the edge of the table to create visual tension. And I think in the bones of Chinese people, they want harmony. They don't want tension. Triangle is not something, if you look at feng shui in Chinese culture, triangle is bad, okay? Everything needs to be balanced and, rectangle or square. That's how, the culture is.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Salva de palmas.